Good morning, guys. Welcome to day 2 of right triangle trig. So I hope you gave that worksheet some practice. You checked your answer key for the homework that was on the website. Today what we're going to do is first start off with this warm-up here, talk about it, and we're going to take a quick Quizlet on identifying sides afterwards. So go ahead and give this a try, and then we'll talk about it. Pause the video to give yourself a chance to work on it. Okay. Let's take a look at the first problem. It says identify the opposite side, adjacent side, and hypotenuse of angle A. So there's our key thing, angle A. So let's see here. Angle A is right here on the triangle, and I want to find the opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So let's start with that opposite side here. Remember, opposite is when you go across the triangle. So go from A across the triangle to that side that's opposite. That's going to be side BC. Then we're going to find the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse, remember, is always the longest side of the triangle. And it's also opposite that right angle. So hypotenuse is always where the right angle is pointing. So that's going to be our hypotenuse for angle A. That's going to be AB. And then finally, the adjacent side, that's the side that's next to AC. So that's our adjacent side. So if we got that here, we're going to say AB is the hypotenuse, BC is the opposite side, and AC is the adjacent side. Okay, so that's the first question. Second question, what side is opposite of angle B? So now we're switching acute angles. We're no longer looking at A. We're going to look at angle B. And the opposite side to angle B is whatever side is directly across from that angle, where that angle opens up to. So that's going to be side AC. That's our opposite side there. All right, guys. So if you need to, take a minute, pause, study that up, and then we're going to take a quick Quizlet. Hope that Quizlet went well. I don't think it would have been too difficult. I feel like you guys probably got it. So let's take a look now at our goals for today. So yesterday we started on finding missing sides in right triangles. So today we're going to continue that practice of finding missing sides. And then after we do that, get some practice, probably about 5 or 6 problems. We're going to take a quick Quizlet on finding those missing sides. And then what we're going to do after that Quizlet is we're going to step up our game a little bit, and we're going to try some multi-step problems on finding missing sides. Let's go ahead and get started. So today what you guys are going to be doing, instead of having something to write on, you guys will need to draw these triangles in your notes, and then we'll work on the problems together. So first problem, go ahead and get that in your notes. If you need to, pause the video first so you can get those copy down, and then we can start. So to start with this problem, it says, what is the value of x? So I want to figure out what's this value here. So to do that, if you guys remember our 4 steps to solving right triangle trig, the first thing you want to do is you want to identify the angle. So we want to figure out where is the angle that we need. Well, here's our angle. All right, that's step 1. We got the angle. Step 2 is to identify the sides. So we need to figure out what sides do we have in reference to this angle 32 degrees. Well, if we go across the triangle to the opposite side, that's x, so we have the opposite. And then the 14, well, that's opposite the right angle here. Right angle is pointing at it. It's also the longest side, so this has to be the hypotenuse. So to do this problem, all we got to do is now decide step 3. We've identified the sides, we identified the angle. Step 3, we need to choose or pick a trig function. And we have to pick the correct trig function. So our trig function that we're going to pick here is, we have to look, let's look at our SOHCAHTOA. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. And I remember that because if I broke a TOA, I have to sew ka TOA. So if I look now, I have the opposite and the hypotenuse. So I need to use those two to pick my trig function. So if I look through here, sine has opposite and hypotenuse. So that's the one that I have to use. It's the only one that has both opposite and hypotenuse. So I'm going to write the sine of my angle, in this case 32. Remember, the angle always goes with that trig function, is equal to the opposite side, x, over the hypotenuse, 14. So now we've done step 3, and we actually just did step 4, write your equation and solve. Write equation and solve. So the solving step, all we have to do is, if you remember that the variable's on top, and that's where the variable is in this problem, then all we have to do is multiply. Variable's on top, multiply. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to say x is equal to 14 times the sine of 32. Now from here, this is something we have to put in our calculators. Okay, so to put it in your calculator, all you're going to do is write exactly what you see. You're going to put 14 times the cosine, we want to do sine, the sine of 32. Put that in your calculator, and you should get 7.418. Now, when we do this, again, we want to round. So when we look at that on the calculator, hopefully you guys can see that. On the calculator there, it's 7.4188. And remember, we always want to round to that third place unless otherwise specified. So that 8 is going to cause that first 8 in the third decimal place to round up to a 9. So our final answer is going to be x is equal to 7.419. So x is equal to 7.419. And that's our final answer right there. Now, if we would have units, we would say whatever units it is. If you want to, technically you can write units here since we don't know exactly what they are. But that's it. Okay. Let's take a look at a second one. Second one, go ahead and get that image drawn. I'll wait a second here. You guys can pause if you need to. Let's take a look at this triangle. So again, remember, follow those 4 steps. Angle, identify your angle. Identify your side. Pick trig function. Equation and solve. Those are our 4 steps. So let's take a look. There's my angle, angle L. My next step is to identify my sides. So I'm going to look here, 16. Well, that's right next to my angle, so that's got to be an adjacent side. And x, well, that is opposite that right angle, so that's got to be the hypotenuse. Also, it's the longest side of the triangle. So I have the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So now I have to look at my SOHCAHTOA. Let's write it out. Sine's opposite over hypotenuse, so SOHCAHTOA. So I have adjacent and hypotenuse. If I look through these, that's the only one that has adjacent and hypotenuse. So that means I'm using cosine. My equation will then look like this. The cosine of the angle always goes with the trig function, is equal to the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. So now from here, we got this equation set up. And if you remember, if the variable is on the bottom, like we talked about yesterday, there's some algebraic steps we can take. But if we remember this rule, we can save some steps for ourselves. So the variable's on the bottom, we're going to divide by the trig function. So, divide by trig. That's all we gotta do. So basically what's happening is we're switching the cosine of 24 with the x. They're switching places. So we're gonna get x is equal to 16 divided by the cosine of 24. So you want to make sure you're not just dividing by 24, but you're dividing by the cosine of 24. That's very important. So from here, all we need to do is take that and put it in our calculators. So we have 16 divided by the cosine of 24. So that's exactly what I'm going to write in the calculator. I'm going to press 16 divided by cosine 24. Close the parentheses, hit enter, and we should get that, 17.514. Now again, I'm rounding that third place, so I look at the fourth decimal, that's 1. So a 1 would leave that 4 the same when it rounded up. So I'm left with x is equal to 17.514. Like I said before, they didn't give us any units, but if they did, if it was meters or feet, we could write that. In this case, since we weren't given anything, we can just write units. You should get into the habit of writing what the units are. So that's it. That's all there is to that problem. If you need to pause, go ahead and pause. Check it out. Let's take a look now at one last example, and I'll give you guys some time to do some on your own. So remember our 4 steps. Identify the angle. That's step 1. So there's the angle. Step 2, identify the sides based off that angle. X, that's opposite of my angle. 22, that's adjacent to my angle. So I have opposite and adjacent. So now I need to look at my trig functions. Let's write them all out. So, ka, toa. And let's take a look. I need opposite and adjacent. So sine is opposite and hypotenuse, that won't work. Cosine's adjacent and hypotenuse, that's not what I need. Tangent is opposite and adjacent. Those are the 2 I have. That's the one I'm going to use. Now we just write our equation. The tangent of the angle, 66, is equal to the opposite side, in this case x, over the adjacent side, 22. Now from here, we just have to solve the equation. Remember your rule, variable is on the top. We're going to multiply by the trig. So we get x is equal to 22 times our trig function, the tangent of 66. And again, all we're going to do is take this equation and put it in our calculator. We're going to say 22 times the tangent of our angle, 66. And there we just hit enter, and we get that side length. So then from there we got 49.412, so that's what we're going to write, but you got to be careful. That 8 after the 2 is going to cause that 2 to round up to be 49.413. So we get x is equal to 49.413. And again, that's just in a unit since we don't know the actual unit. Is it feet, meters, centimeters? We don't know. Okay. So that's our last example. What I want you guys to do before we take the Quizlet, I want you to take a look at these 3 problems. 3, 5, and 7 on the worksheet that you should have grabbed on your way in today. So take a look at 3, 5, and 7. Go ahead and pause the video and then come back and check the answers. I'll have them posted up here. Okay, so here's the answers that I got. If you guys want to check your work, make sure you got the same thing as I did. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can snap a picture and send me a text on or mine and say, hey, Mr. Harmon, I don't get this one. Hopefully I can try to respond as quickly as I can. But just take a look at that. All right, so you can pause now if you want to take a little bit more time looking at it. If not, we are ready for the Quizlet. Go ahead, put your stuff away real quick. Good luck on the Quizlet.